Good evening, everyone, and welcome along to RGL SRL Season 1. Yep, we're going back in time for these respective leagues on the Xbox platform, and today we are here for round one of the season, the Australian Grand Prix, and a season which, if the pre-season race is anything to go by, should be absolutely fantastic. Really close action throughout the pack in both Tier 1 and Tier 2. There's plenty of racing to be done on circuit, there's plenty of drivers ready to take the championship fight, and there's also plenty of familiar faces and names that will be associated and part of this league over the course of this year. One of the men who is associated or has been in the past with one of these leagues, SRL, back in the days. Dom joins us in the commentary box for this one, and it is good to be back racing again in SRL, RGL. The nostalgia's kind of back, Dom, and what are you kind of hoping for in the course of this race? Because, of course, you may not be here for the whole season.
Good evening, everyone. Should be interesting. Australia, we know how season starts in terms of how chaotic they can be, the racing and the action. I think my guys that I'm looking at big time are Maestro, Langman, and oh my god, it's Joe and VRT Verstappen. They're the guys that I see on this in this lobby that I think, whoa, they're the guys that are challenging up front. But of course, there are other guys here as well that I haven't seen before in the grid, and that makes it ever more exciting because the competition, to me, it's going to be very unknown to see who's going to be competing against who. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, and me and myself and Commando commentated on the pre-season race last time out at Hockenheim, so if you did miss it, go back and try and watch it when you can, because it was a cracker, and we do go into a lot of discussions about the league, but I'm sure we'll go into even more for this one as well. Australia is we're back again, and there's plenty of drivers ready to take the fight, as I say, many of whom have raced in RGL and SRL in the past, and there's not many new faces to the leagues, but there are definitely drivers who are looking to prove a point. Now, SRL and RGL in particular, we've been looking around 2015 games SRL at least, RGL 2016, but that's not to say we can't discriminate against leagues. These guys are in the same league now, so it doesn't matter. We can go off history and what they've achieved, but we can't go into much more than that. The likes of Ginger Ninja, for example, was the runner-up in Season 2 of the RGL season. He missed out on the championship by just, I believe, 25 points in the end to Langman at the Italian Grand Prix in Season 2. I remember all of this. Grumpy Lion, as we discussed at Hockenheim, was one of the very first to take to an SRL grid. In fact, he may have been one of the first sign-ups SRL have ever had, so he's got some history within SRL's ranks. And then, of course, Langman, who won the Season 2 championship, will be looking for a hopefully similar fate for him this season. There's a lot of competitive drivers, a lot of competitive teams. That Ferrari in particular, that team in particular, looks very, very strong indeed, with Maestro and Langman at the helm.
It does indeed, man, and they're going to be a strong lineup, very fast drivers in those two seats. So I expect, obviously I won't be here for the whole season, but I expect when I do look at the standings, to see them right up there particularly, and there's solid drivers in those two seats there.
Absolutely right. Others to just pick up on. And Maestro finds himself in a bit of traffic in the Ferrari, not least from the Mercedes of just Joe, who started, I believe, racing in SRL. I think it was, I won't put a season on it because I'm not quite sure. I want to say Season 2 or Season 3, but I could be completely wrong with that. Don't probably know more than me, because I think Joe actually started in Tier 1 himself. Fry Boogie is another one as well. He started in RGL, and consistent driver is Fry Boogie. I'm not too sure what he does these days. I think he races in, I want to say BPRL, but I can't remember. He was very solid, the Austrian, proving a couple of times, got a podium a couple of times as a solid driver. Don't know what to expect from him on 2018, but there's still potentially a chance for him this season.
Indeed, we are on board with Maestro currently. He's completing his first initial run here in qualifying, coming around the last corner, and gets some traction very nicely out of it. And let's see what his first lap will be in qualifying. He actually backs out of it, so he's chosen, it's almost like a cycle lap for him, 20.8, but I'm sure there's a lot more lap time in that as he's close to the line. So as KJ Gamer's going to go on 20.250, so Interesting to see that from Maestro, who slowed down right at the end, potentially looking at the other set of compound tyres for the start of the race, potentially, and going for a different strategy heading into the race, which obviously is very interesting because we've seen this a lot in other leagues where they've gone for the harder of the two soft compounds for the start of the race, chosen to do the one stop instead of the two stops. So, again, strategy is quite big in this in these leagues as well. As you can see,
I see a lot of guys following. Yeah, a lot of guys following a similar fate, all going on those ultra softs, backing off towards the end of the lap. Now, I mean, you're right to say that, Don. They all want to go on that alternate strategy. Australian tyre wear is a match made in hell. It's not very good at all. So these guys will just want to test the waters, test out these ultra soft tyres, get their banker laps set on the ultras, and you'll see a massive influx potentially in the last 5 minutes of qualifying.
Could be very exciting. The last 5 minutes is where things do really hot up. The track gets better. As Langman's made a massive mistake out of the fast left-right, and he nearly hits the wall, but luckily he hasn't just gone... as the Salva's hit the wall instead. As soon as I say that, the Salva's just gone flying in the same identical thing as Langman. Langman's just trying to reverse out of there, but the Salva of most Ronin,
yeah.
Most Ronin. Is now out of qualifying, so easy mistake there actually. The curb on the inside is absolutely lethal, so that can really cause some big damage to your car. Another man who's out there currently is, oh my god, it's Joe. He isn't on an absolute fast lap, he's on an out lap currently. He's one to watch as well this season. Very competitive as a driver, he's doing superbly well in other leagues, ILRs particularly, and I think he's one to watch this season too. He's definitely getting a lot better over time, and he's one to definitely watch. I personally think he's quite underrated as oh my god as Joe, so looking forward to seeing what he can do throughout the whole season, and particularly in this race, because I know he's one to be very much watched. He heads into turn 1 right now, into 4th gear, and he's got a little bit wide there. He's also the car a little bit slightly on the exit. Let's run on board with the Mercedes driver as he heads down into turn, I think it's turn 3, brakes down in 3rd gear, he hits the apex nicely. Careful on the power into 4th, and he doesn't run too wide, flat out in the right-hander at the 6th gear, and now 7th, and that's his first sector completed, and he is up quite a bit on his previous best. Down to 4th again, not using too much curb because you can easily oversteer on the exit there. You head into very tight right-left, again very tricky on traction, but in these modern F1 cars, not too bad. Another F1 game is a little bit hard, but he gets a pretty good exit from his fast left-right. Which again, the second part of this left-right is very tricky. He heads down in 7th gear and accepts it pretty nicely. A little bit of oversteer on the exit though. Gets a bit leery. Got a bit of traffic in the way, but gets out of the way pretty nicely. Down into 4th, I think it's 4th gear for this corner, which he does get nicely. A little bit of oversteer on the exit as he hits the curb. And his fast right-hander in 6th gear. And now into the bottom corner, very hard braking zone. Down into 2nd gear. Be careful on the throttle as you go into the, and he backs out his lap. So he's, again, a sighter lap for Joe there. And he's going to go for another run towards the end of the session. Anybody else? Beata Kazapin's still in the pits, so we haven't seen what he can do yet. Grumpy Lion is out there in the Red Bull. And he's lagging a little bit on my screen, so I'm a bit worried for the people where he's gone.
No surprise.
Yeah, he's actually gone into the gravel. Apparently Marshall B hasn't. Let's see what he can do as it comes across the line. It's going to be a 1:21. Is it 21? Is it or 20? Let's see what he's done. He does a 20.978, so goes into P3. But, decent so far, but let's hope his connection can hold up. I mean, if he's lagging on our screens, then there's a potential that he's lagging on other people's screens. So,
yeah. Absolutely right. The thing I was just going to point out real quickly was actually most Ronan. Now, him going out of qualifying this early, okay, it does put him on a good set of tyres for the race, and he will be starting from the back of the grid, regardless of what happens now. But unless there's, of course, a massive disqualification, but I haven't seen anyone get disqualified from qualifying ever, so I don't think that will happen. But most Ronan actually got pole position in the pre-season race in Germany. He had very, very good pace. So that's a big shame for him, because he may have been a contender today for pole position, but he's already out of qualifying, and that's a big blow for him. Langman begins his first flying lap in the Ferrari, heads down towards turn 3 absolutely flat with that DRS, foot to the floor, brakes as hard as he can after the 50-metre board or so, throws the car in, and once again into the Ricardo corner of turn 4, runs really wide. You don't want to be taking too much more curb than what he did there, because that really will unsettle the car. Through turn 5, up towards turn 6 and turn 7, that follow as well. And this is, of course, where Pastor Maldonado famously had that crash in 2012 after being P5 for a lot of that Grand Prix. Langman then comes down in towards the turn 9 and 10 and backs completely out of the lap. But let's see, no, he's pushing a little bit. You can take a fair bit of curb on the inside there. 11 and 12, we just stay on board with him. It's just how flat you've got to take 11 and 12. And would he dare take it flat? Not really. We know he's probably much backed out of this one. The third DRS zone we have of the season is just after 11 and 12, and that's a big factor to why you may see spins in qualifying, because people getting that little bit too eager on the throttle, trying to get the power down, and the DRS is just inevitably going to go wide open, isn't it? And they just lose all back end grip.
Indeed, yeah. Joe, I think Lamon's going again, so he just recharged again and gone. So maybe he made a mistake on that lap we were commentating over. Here he goes again, heads down into turn 1 like last time. Let's see what he does. Down into 4th gear, hits the inside nicely, short shoots at the 5th mid-corner. Gets a good run from those first 2 corners. A bit of traffic in his way, hopefully get out of the way nicely, which he does. Down into 2nd gear here, up the 3rd, short shifting quickly. Up the 4th, doesn't want to go too wide again, runs it quite right over the curb, but doesn't lose him too much time. Now, up by 2 tenths of his previous best, down to 4th gear, doesn't run it too wide. And it's looking pretty neat and tidy in terms of just traction and everything. Now here it's waiting to really focus. He's locked at the front left right a little bit there, and he's compromised his line quite a lot, gets lots of oversteer. And it really will compromise the run down here before this fast left right. But there's still a bit more time in that lap for Langman. And he's so close, they're on the edge through that left right. And now we break down into 4th gear once again. And he's running it just okay. He's not getting too much oversteer. Down to 5th gear, now heading into the corner, braking down into 2nd gear. And there's a good run for this last corner. Very careful on traction. And to the line now with his DRS. KJ Game has gone purple at 20.2. Across the line for Langman, it's 20.0. But he's still, on my screen, down in 13th. So that lap,
yeah,
count.
He may have invalidated it actually. 11 and 12, that fast left-right chicane, it's very easy on the exit of the corner there to actually invalidate your time. It sounds really weird, I know, but running too wide there can, of course, lose you lap time. Interestingly enough, VSR KJ Gamer is currently on pole position on those super soft tyres, the best super soft lap we've seen so far in this qualifying session, but he's only 8 thousandths faster, or 8 milliseconds as Crofty calls it, ahead of Ginger Ninja at the moment in the Sauber, who is also on a set of now, he's on ultra soft tyres as Ginger Ninja, so a good showing from the Sauber, but he has got a lot of fast guys behind him, one of which is Grumpy Align, who's about to begin one of his laps. A lot of guys are flying out the pits to start their final runs in qualifying. It's not quite over for a lot of people yet. They'll get their one more ultra soft banker, if you like, in, and then they'll dive into the pits and fit on those super soft tyres. It's crucial then that if they are going to set their laps on those super soft tyres, they get it absolutely right. They cannot afford to have any sort of mistakes on their in or flying lap. They can't really be in traffic. It's just you just what's happened?
Joe is had a little wobble out of the left right again, and he's on a lap, very quick lap here for Joe. Very low on fuel, so he's absolutely going for it. Whether he backs off into the pit lane again, I'm not quite sure. Let's see what he does. Does he complete this lap? He will complete this lap. So let's see what it's going to be for the Mercedes driver as he comes to the line now. And there one is backs off of the line straight again. So backs it way off. Again, he's probably a second and a half, 2 seconds where he's just lost that time on purpose. So there's definitely a lot more in Joe's lap. He's just teasing us right now. And so are the other drivers on the grid.
Yeah, another thing I've just seen, actually, if you take a look, 4th and 5th, you have Lion and Fry Boogie, and their lap times are separated by a scarcely believable now 3 thousandths of a second. It was 1 thousandth of a second. That is the smallest of margins in Formula 1, because we only go after 3 of the decimal point. So that is quite crazy how close those two are. And most drivers back, if you like to look at the Jerez, for example, in 1997, wanted to see the digit after the 3rd, after the decimal point. I know this is getting quite technical, but stay with me, folks. It's quite simple. Let's see who else will start their lap. Haynes had a good showing in the pre-season race, and he is just coming to the pits on those super soft tyres. Maybe that's his true pace on the super softs. He had a good showing on the alternate strategy though, so he may be a factor for a potential podium in this Grand Prix, but we can't ever put the money laid down just yet. A lot of people coming into the pits and getting prepped for their final runs in qualifying.
Woodland's out there currently in the Force Indy. He's coming out the final couple of corners and he comes back into the pit. So again, these guys are all teasing us right now and not giving us out the lap times that they can do. So the last 3 minutes of the session is going to be absolutely hectic out there, because these are guys who are going to go absolutely at it, and hopefully we see those times absolutely tumble. And the battle for pole is ramping up in the final 3 minutes.
Absolutely right. VSR KJ Kamer can't do enough. That's all he's got left in the tank on those super soft tyres. He doesn't want to do another lap, and he will start at very least pole position at the moment. It could be, sorry, very most will be pole position at the moment. And there's a few guys who are behind him ready to take their fight, one of which is Maestro. He's come out a lot earlier than most on those super soft tyres. A good call potentially from the Ferrari driver, thinking about, actually, if I go out now, then the traffic will be all behind me when I finish my lap. Maybe. I mean, that's a way of looking at it.
That's a big maybe.
A lot of guys are starting to dive out now, though, so he could get screwed over on his lap.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, the last sort of 2.5 minutes, people can start rushing up the pit lane, and Maestro will be on his flying lap, and he's going to get caught up on that. So hopefully for him, we're going to watch Maestro on board, as you can see cars are exiting the pit lane as we speak. So I'm praying for Maestro's sake he doesn't get held up as he heads down to turn 1. Down into 4th gear, hits the inside nicely. It's a decent run, and you've got traffic in the way, but then to get out of the way pretty nicely. There's a guy in front of him, hopefully he's okay. We break down into turn 3, down to the 2nd gear, locks at the front right a little bit, but he's okay at the 3rd now. Keeps it in 3rd, and actually at the 4th. He's a little bit of OC in the exit, and that's the first step completed. He should be across the line. Let's see if it's an improvement, and he is. 26.6 in the first sector. Got a decent run through there as well. Again, we've got somebody on that lap in front of him, so hopefully that traffic does clear for him. Now this right left again, another right left. You need to be careful on the traction, not too much on the curve, and he gets it pretty much perfect. Again, I think it's a Red Bull in his way. It'll move to the left hand side, and he does do. And Maestro goes through the fast left-right section. Very important to get this right, and he has got that right. A little bit of OS on the exit, but not too bad. And he is on the super soft compound to note. It breaks at the 50-metre ball down to 3rd gear, up to 4th quickly, and up to 5th. And now the fast right-hander down in the 5th gear, hugs the inside nicely, doesn't run it too wide. And now the penultimate corner got a Sauber in the way, but it shouldn't cause him too much problems. And then the last corner in 4th gear, up to 5th, and now 6th. And that's been a pretty good run from F1 Maestro as he comes to the line now. Is it going to be pole? The 20.1 provisional pole for F1 Maestro here in Australia.
Absolutely, it's a fantastic lap from Maestro, but the final seconds of qualifying are still not over. Lyon, I don't know whether he's on a lap. He's coming around the final corner anyway. We'll see what he can do in the Red Bull. I think he may have just started a lap, so we'll come back to him towards the end. Joe is on a lap. He is flying around at the moment, coming towards the end of the first sector. Likewise, Langman is also, I believe, actually on his final attempt then. So the Ferrari is exiting the final corner. Could it be a Ferrari lockout on the front row, unless the Mercedes has something to say about it? Langman up towards the line. Can he get pole position? And can he snatch it away from his teammate? No, he can't. He can only go P4. Season 2 champion is behind the Season 2 runner-up in Ginger Ninja. A good effort then from the Sauber, who is currently on a lap on ultra soft tyres. Joe is flying down now the back straight down towards turn 13, and he is absolutely on this. And can the Mercedes find anything to stop the Ferrari of F1 Maestro, who's had a stellar lap there in the Ferrari? Can Joe find himself in the 1:19s? It would be a stonking effort if he can in the Mercedes. He exits the penultimate corner into the final corner. Try not to take too much curb on the exit. You can get a bit sloppy. Joe up towards the line. Will he get to pole position here today? Yes, he will, and he will not get into the 1:19s. It's a 1:20.015. it's enough of pole position, but Ginger Ninja comes across the line. He's only P2. Grumpy Lion is still on a lap. So is Warden. He exits the final corner. He's got a bit of pace in that Force India. Towards the line he goes then. Can he get towards the front? No, only P7 on the grid. Lion is up towards the line as well. In the Red Bull. Can he get anywhere near? No, he only starts 8th. Haynes isn't far behind. He finishes in 10th. Verting Verstappen up towards the line. He's got good accolades as the youngster. Can he find himself anywhere near that top 5 group? No, he'll only go P9 on the grid. P8 on the grid, I should say, and a very hectic end to qualifying, but ultimately Joe does take pole position for the Australian Grand Prix.
Well, congratulations to Joe there. He absolutely stole it away from Maestro, but a great qualifying session there in the last final 3 minutes. It all got pretty tense for Maestro and Joe at the end, but Joe took it away.
Absolutely, and there is your grid. Joe does start on pole position, and Maestro will be very happy to be starting alongside Joe on the front row. KJ Gamer had enough for the second row. He starts just ahead of Ginger Ninja, who is the first of the ultra soft runners. Langman starts from 5th, will be disappointed with that. Jack RT starts from 6th, Warden 7th, Verstappen 8th on the end. Lion starts from 9th, Boogie rounds out the top 10. Haynes on the ultra softs starts 11th, and probably the best place he could be. Codfield starts from 12th. Street Gamer starts from 13th, and Most Running Road, who did have the collision at turn 11 and during the exit at turn 12, does start from the back. But interesting to note that the top 10 cars, top 11 cars in fact, separated by just under a second. A good little omen for what the season lies ahead.
Indeedly so. We head into the race now. Cloudy start for us here in Australia, so could be some rain on the way. We don't know the forecast, the drivers do of course, so potentially some rain on the way, but I've got a slight suspicion that that's just teasing us. It's going to be a clear one, but probably just a cloudy race for us. People on different strategies, of course, different tyre compounds. Some people are on different compounds, so we should see an interesting race here for the strategy. However, if we do get some rain, that's not necessarily so bad, is it? Because that means strategy is up in the air.
Absolutely, it will spice things up, of course. The Australian Grand Prix, if you're just joining us, SRL and RGL is back in business, ladies and gentlemen. We're back again for technically the first season of the joint league of SRL and of RGL, and it is good to be back. A lot of nostalgia coming back, as we've discussed over the qualifying session, and a very good qualifying session, very close indeed. But the formation lap will mean that we get just a little bit of leeway to decide who we could see as potential race winners here today. The top 10 will start on the tyres that they qualified on, as you would expect. So Joe, Maestro, KJ Gamer all start with the Super Softs. Ginger Ninja does start on those Ultra Softs, so expect him to have a good start in this Grand Prix, but fall off towards the end of his first stint. Langman starts from 5th in the Ferrari, the Season 2 champion of RGL, does start in a very, very good position. To be fair, it's not completely out of the question that he could get some very good points and potentially a podium here today. Jack RT does start behind him on those Super Softs, as does Warden and Verstappen. Lion decides to go on the Ultra Soft tyres. You'll see him bolt off the start, and what a start he had in the pre-season race in Hockenheim. Boogie also starts on the Ultra Soft tyres in the Toro Rosso, and again, not bad for him either. Used to be a manor driver back in the day, from what I remember. Haynes is the first of the Super Soft runners outside the top 10, and it's maybe a good call from him, hoping that he can get his way through the traffic as swiftly as possible. He'll be wanting to see some lap 1 carnage ahead of him. The safety car is a factor, of course. Everyone behind, so Codfield, Strict Gamer and Most Ronan leaving it long in this one. They'll be taking a much longer strategy, and they'll be hoping to do something on those soft tyres, hoping perhaps that a safety car doesn't come out just so, or maybe it comes out so they can maybe bolt on a set of Ultra Softs at the end. Who knows? But it's going to be close. We're heading towards the grid for this RGL SRL race, and Maestro dive bombing Joe in towards the final couple of corners, but that doesn't matter. We're back here today then, and it all kicks off. We're here once again, 14 drivers lining ready for the light sequence. We've seen this many a time in the past, and they have done it many a time in the past. No debutants in league racing here today. Let's see what they have in the bag then. Joe will start on the front row. Alongside him is Maestro, and from the camera shot towards turn 1, the way that we'll look at the lights, it will be from Joe on the right and Maestro on the left, but that does not matter. We go to 5 red lights for the start of RGL SRL Season 1. It's lights out and away we go. It seems like a pretty good launch from Maestro. He's going to be squeezed out by Joe in towards turn one. Look at the McLaren who sat on the outside. Maestro into turn one, takes the lead of the Australian Grand Prix. There's KJ Game around the outside of Joe. He's had a shocking start from P1 on the grid. A red ball off in the background. Joe back on the attack in towards turn three. The McLaren down the inside of the Ferrari. Can't quite get it done. You see side-by-side action behind. Ginger Ninja has lost out at the start actually on those options off tyres. The McLaren nearly squeezing the Mercedes into the wall. They're too wide into there, and Joe does get away and doesn't quite get the move done on the McLaren. He's going to be sat behind him now. KJ Gamer staying ahead of the Mercedes. You've got to watch Ferrari in the background as well. Langland is all over Joe as they head down towards this final chicane, and KJ Gamer's moving really aggressively on the brakes. Joe down the inside in towards the chicane. He can't quite get the move done, and now the McLaren is going to be a sitting touch towards 11 and 12. They're nearly three wide as they head down towards 11 and 12. Look at the Sauber behind. This is crazy stuff. Into 11 and 12. McLaren holds the outside line, then gets the inside line for 12, and Joe can't get his way through. And the McLaren is somehow holding P2 for now. But look at that train of cars behind. Joe is trying on the outside, can't quite get the move done. And Ginger Ninja on the attack of Langman. He also can't get the move done. Joe down the inside again in towards the final couple of corners. This is crazy. Verstappen making strides up through the pack as well. And this is mental, Dom. What a start to this Grand Prix.
That was craziness, man. Maestro's absolutely sprinted away after all the action from second down all the way through the order. They were going full wide at one point for the fast left-right. That is absolutely insane stuff, but clean. These guys giving each other racing room, and that's what we like to see here in this league.
Absolutely, and there goes Verstappen down the inside of his teammate Jack RT in towards turn three. Can't get the move done. The full senior of Boog's had a good start. He's moved up from P7, from P10 to P7 on the road at the moment. A good start from him. The two house cars dicing away once again. Jack RT staying ahead of Verstappen, two of the youngest guys in the league that we have, and he just cannot stay. Just can't get past the moment of Verstappen. Bailey's doing his best but can't quite get the move done. The Sauber behind a Ginger Ninja has had a pretty poor start. He'll want to get past Freud Boogie, and these two have come into racing blows before, and there goes Ginger Ninja around the outside, and he's got the move done ahead. And Verstappen has also got past his teammate, and he is into P5. A lot of action going on further and further down the grid. It is a complete mess of a start, but Maestro dominating out of front. He's just walked away. He didn't want to get involved in any of that, but what a start from the Ferrari. Got squeezed down to turn one. He was having none of it. He thought, no, I'm not going to give in here, and he had a brilliant launch. Throw it down the inside of Joe into turn one, and that's left Joe in maybe a bit of pile on his face. He did not expect the Ferrari to come steaming down the inside of him there. Maestro with the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as we enter lap 3, and DRS is enabled.
Insane start from Maestro there. It was the perfect start. He just nailed it off the line. He was aggressive, wasn't taking anything from Joe, and he's nailed that, and he's now sprinting away, and he's just keeping it all calm, keeping it consistent on those soft compound tyres, and he's just running the race now as Joe is just sitting behind KJ Gamer. And I noticed Joe was getting very impatient behind KJ Gamer, and that could be one of his weaknesses throughout the season. If he doesn't keep his head, it's gonna perhaps affect him, and currently he's just sitting behind KJ Gamer now within a second of him, and I think Joe's just going to stick behind him for the first stint or so and look for his best opportunity in the DRS, which obviously will be activated this lap. But I also noticed with VRT Verstappen and Jack RT, Jack RT actually let him go, so it seems as if there's a bit of orders going on there, potentially looking at the wider scheme of things throughout the whole race instead of actually looking at the first lap. They're looking at the whole race in general, so some strategy going on there for the two Haas boys. Again, a lineup that might be very interesting in terms of consistency throughout the whole season. As Scorpio Line gets the 3-second time penalty. So, again, a good start from Maestro. He's heading out there in the lead, 3.3 seconds of gap. And Joe now is right there with KJ Gamers. Let's see how this all pans out now. Let's see if Joe can do anything for the McLaren driver. He's going to be in the DRS as he hits down the slipstream. Actually, if anything, Langman's closer to Joe than Joe is to KJ Gamer. They head down turn one once again, and the gap hasn't really closed it that much. He needs to get a good exit here from Joe from turn two, and he hasn't really got the exit he wants. He's in the DRS once again, but he isn't closing that much, and the straights here are quite short, and it's very important to get the exits, particularly from turn two and the last corner, to hook yourself up down that back step, that pit straight and that straight after turn two. But unfortunately, Joe hasn't been able to execute those exits as well as he would like to. But still, it's still KJ Gamer leading Joe here for second place.
Absolutely, and Joe's teammate, who is Ollie Smithson, isn't racing here today, but those two Mercedes will be ones to watch in the Constructors' Championship, I'm sure. But the Ferraris could play a big factor today in potentially getting some very, very big points and some valuable points as the season goes on. Langman is P4, a good start then for him, and that was probably what he was hoping for. Hoping to just stay within the cusp of Joe. He goes very sideways on the exit of 12, and that may leave him into a bit of a calamity really, with Langman just behind him, and these two have got plenty of history with each other in terms of league racing. They've gone for many a championship against each other, and they'll be hoping to do the same fate here as well. They've been teammates in the past, and they're teammates for a few leagues, but this is where it matters really for these guys. They can really race against each other and show what they are capable of. And these were the leagues, of course, and this was the league, of course, where these guys really did make their names heard. And now look at what they're doing. It's absolutely stunning. But KJ Gamer isn't really falling into too much pressure from Joe at the moment. Half a second is the gap, and Joe just doesn't seem to be able to match KJ Gamer in many senses. You can't quite get close enough, and all of this is allowing Verstappen to close up behind as well. And he's on a set of super soft tyres. A very nice setup on that Haas indeed. I've tried it myself and it works an absolute treat. So expect him to potentially get involved in the mix here. Verstappen, who's had a bit of a blunder in league racing recently, hasn't really had the confidence over recent weeks, I've been told and I've heard. He just hasn't been making a couple of mistakes here and there, but he'll be wanting to come back in RGL and prove a point. And Verstappen in P5 at the moment, you could say, is a very, very good result for the Haas driver.
Indeed, it would think of the season very nicely, wouldn't it? You know, it's very important early on to get the points on the board, and I think for him, if he has been having those sort of confidence issues, it's going to be good for him to put some points on the board, so then at least he can say to himself, you know what, I got some points on the board, now I can start focusing on improving my pace, and at least he knows that he can be top 5 potential in this league. That's the whole idea. I think once you understand that and you know that you're going to top 5 potential, then you can start laying down the foundations to try and get faster, and try and get those better results. So very important race for all these guys here to actually get some points on the board. But turning back to sort of the battle for P2, yeah, Joe's within sort of half a second once again, but he just can't find a way past KJ Gamer. If anything, Langman looks a bit more confident in terms of racing behind Joe than Joe is behind KJ Gamer. So I think we've got an interesting battle here for P2. But once again, Maestro is keeping the gap at about 3.2. He isn't rushing it. He isn't bolting away. He's got the gap out quite enough, but he's not going to start pushing too hard. He knows what's at stake here, and he's a very clean racer, is Maestro. He doesn't get many penalties for corner cutting, so he's just controlling the race as it stands, and it's looking pretty nice for the Formula 1, for the actual Ferrari driver early on. But once again, Joe within sort of 6/10 here, and he's in the slipstream, and he's trying to find something, and he's got 50% ERS, so he is using that ERS behind the McLaren driver. He's trying his absolute best. So let's see what sort of exit he gets out of the left, right, and once again he's getting a decent exit. He's in the DRS once again, but again it's such a short straight. You've got no real opportunity to get past, so he's going to have to wait again. And actually, KJ Gamer has made a mistake here. And it's Joe on the inside of KJ Gamer. Does he get this one done? He has to get it done, and I think he has got it done, but wait a minute. The McLaren driver's going to have the DRS once again, or really have the DRS. I think it'll be Joe this time round to the DRS activation point, and it will be Joe who gets the DRS. So that move is done, and that leaves Langman right on the back of F1 Maestro of KJ Gamer here. So let's see what he can do. He is in the DRS, but KJ Gamer should get the DRS on Joe here again. He won't. So the activation was way back there in sector 3. And Langman now is all over the back of KJ Gamer. But that will bother KJ Gamer because he's made that mistake. He's also at position to Joe. Joe, it was absolutely imperative for Joe to get that move done. He had to seize the opportunity, and as soon as he saw it, he took it. He now needs to start thinking about bolting away and closing that gap to Maestro. But KJ Gamer, that mistake will be running through his head. He needs to be not rattled by that mistake, because if he does let it rattle him, he'll be under massive pressure from Langman, and Langman is piling the pressure on right now because Langman knows that this is the prime opportunity to have any chance on KJ Gamer.
KJ Gamer's locking up once again into that chicane. He was really struggling on these. Maybe he's not struggling on the tyres, he's just getting a bit flustered, like you say. That's one thing he can't afford to do. Langman is sitting behind, he's now got himself a 3-second time penalty, so he isn't helping his boys whatsoever. Langman needs to get that little bit closer, you feel, to really challenge the McLaren down in towards potentially turn 3 of the next lap, and he gets a little bit hairy on the exit there, does Langman. And you're right, Joe now needs to bolt. He needs to go towards Maestro. He really does need to reel in that Ferrari. And what a battle this could be between the Ferrari and the Mercedes. The conditions are improving here, and Langman pits early doors into this Grand Prix. From the super soft tyres, he will bolt on that set of soft tyres and potentially go to the end, but I highly doubt that he will if he's pitting that early. I don't think that that's maybe the best call Langman's made. Let's see then what others will do around him. The likes of Joe and KJ Game are also on those super soft tyres. They will have to come out and pounce as well. Jack Artine, meanwhile, is looking for a move on the inside of it's Ginger Ninja, and he can't quite get the move done in the house, but that was getting really close between the two of them.
We've got another battle as well, Codfield and Moosburn and Ronan. They're both battling away, and Moosburn and Ronan is looking a little bit vulnerable here from the Red Bull driver. So let's keep with these two as well. They're both on the soft compound tyres, and Moosburn and Ronan is looking a little bit. I think traction is a problem for the Sauber driver here. So let's see what Codfield can do against the Sauber driver. As we head down into this little mini straight before the left-right. Let's see what sort of exit Codfield can get from this left-right. It's very important because you have a good chance. He's quite close behind the Sauber driver here. Let's see what he can do.
Jack Artine's in the barriers. Sorry, he's just absolutely binned it coming out of turn 11 and 12. I went on board and he spun the car around and got too much exit curve, and he's out of the Australian Grand Prix in the first retirement of this season as well. Really disappointing. But back to the battle with Maestro and Ronan and Codfield.
Yeah, here he comes now. So he's into the penultimate corner now. He's right there, up his chuff now. Heads down into the final corner. Needs a good exit, which we get that. And Warden's right behind us as well, so you never know. Let's run on board with the Red Bull driver now and head down into turn 1. He's actually for battle for P4, but remember, they're going longer into the race. Now into turn 1, fourth gear. He's a good exit. He's got a pretty good run here. He's a DRS. He's in the slipstream. He's going to be using that ERS as he can. He's going to go up the inside, and most running. He's going to let him have the inside. Let's see if he can pull this one off. He can't for the moment. He's starting on the outside, turns to the inside for turn 5, I think it is.
Oh, Joe and Langman in battle as well. Sorry, this is crucial for the Grand Prix. Langman around the outside of Joe in towards turn 4, and he can't quite get the move done, but Langman's managed to jump KJ Gamer in the pit stop. So huge, and KJ Codfield's off. He's gone off, he's into the barriers, he's out of the Australian Grand Prix as well. So he must have made contact with both Moan and Ronan. It's all kicking off in this Australian Grand Prix. Strict Gamers out of the Grand Prix as well. There's so much going on in all this mayhem really in Australia, but Langman and Joe got in very, very close battle there for P6 in the Grand Prix, but P2 on the road, and that Ferrari will be hoping to get a 1-2 for the Scuderia in this Australian Grand Prix. What a fantastic Grand Prix this is turning into.
The undercuts worked wonders for Langman there, hasn't it? He's absolutely done the strategy of dreams. Hit a lap or two earlier, and now he's right behind Joe, and Joe will see this and think, oh god, I'm in trouble, because now Verstappen actually got 5 seconds to go for speeding the pit lane, so it's so easy to do and make these little bit errors here in Australia. Warden does exactly the same thing, and he gets a 5-second time penalty as well. But once again, we'll keep with these two as they battle it off. Langman and Joe, these two are they're great drivers. They're going to be battling it out, I think, throughout the whole season, I expect. Let's see what Langman can do in comparison. Remember, he had those the slightly older tyres in comparison. They're a lot older, but that shouldn't make too much of a difference. The tyres around it, the soft compound tyres as a whole, are pretty good tyres. But it does seem to me that the Ferrari driver's got a little bit more confidence in those soft compound tyres than the Mercedes driver. So, all to play for, and Langman's going to be putting on that pressure as much as he can onto Joe. And look how close he is. He's looking pretty confident now, though, isn't he, James?
Absolutely right he is, and actually, to be fair, the driving styles between these two is something that I've picked up on many a time, and you just get used to it, having commentated on so many races I have with these two involved. And Joe just seems to have this style of driving. The back end always seems to come out on that car. He just almost like he prefers the oversteer on the car, whereas Langman, because he's on the pad, you don't see it as much. So really, actually, that's just maybe Joe's driving style, which is why he looks so flamboyant when he's driving around in that Mercedes. But he's managed to narrow that gap between himself and Maestro. It was about 3.3 seconds when the pit stops were being made. It's now just 2 seconds. Maestro really must have struggled on his in-lap, but he hasn't lost the lead of the Grand Prix, and that's the only thing that matters in this race as well. KJ Gamer is falling off behind Langman as well. He's 1.5 seconds behind that Ferrari, who now is losing time on Joe as well. And Joe does go and set the fastest lap of this Grand Prix. It's all starting to fold into place. Grumpy Line pits from P9, and he is having a really, really woeful day at the moment, is the Dutchman, and he'll just want to maybe even score some points would be a result for him today. Most Ronan leads though on those soft tyres, and he's a very, very good tyre saver is most Ronan, and he'll be wanting to do that in the due course of this Grand Prix. It's still Ronan from Maestro, from Joe and Langman in the top 4.
Yeah, looking very good for most Ronan. Again, we said this actually after qualifying, actually going into the grid. The guys who started outside the top 10, they opted for the soft compound. They're going longer into the race, which is going to help them potentially. And if collisions happen like we've seen, we've seen Caulfield go out, Street Gamer go out, and Jack RT, that puts the points on the board for people like most Ronan who started on these tyres. So it's all looking pretty good for most Ronan right now. It could be right there in the top 10 and get some decent points on the board to start this season off.
Absolutely right, and so we'll be looking for some good points to start the season off. Ginger Ninja's doing a fine job in P7. He actually took those ultra soft tyres as long as a lot of guys on supers did. So he's had a brilliant stint on those ultra soft tyres. Really, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, he had a difficult start. He was in a lot of contact, but he's managed to pick his way through the field when he needs to, and he's in P7 now, and just ahead of Fry Boogie, who is another man who started on the ultra soft tyres, and he is actually on a very similar strategy. Well, he's on the exact same strategy as Ginger Ninja. So yeah, it's looking like a good day in the office at the moment for these two, and some RGL veterans, you could say, doing quite well in 7th and 8th. Verstappen all by himself now in P6, and he's driving a very solid Grand Prix. He just needs to keep it all together now, and this is all he can hope for. P6 will be P5 when most Ronan stops. It's all about where he comes out. A good drive though from Verstappen, a very calculated drive from the youngster, and that's the kind of point he needs at the early doors this season.
He does, yeah. I mean, it sets you up pretty nicely as now most Ronan gets 3-second time penalties. He's starting to make mistakes on those older soft compound tyres. The wear is obviously getting to him, and obviously he needs to start thinking about pitting. Obviously he wants to tie it just right. He could do another lap on those soft compound tyres, but obviously there's a risk that he might have a puncture, or he might fall into Maestro's battle with Maestro, and that's obviously something that he doesn't want to do. So really, he's got to time it pretty nicely. Let's see what he does. Is he going to continue for one more lap? He will continue for one more lap, so he thinks he's got enough. Now Maestro really doesn't want to get trapped behind most Ronan. He's got a 2-second gap to, oh my god, it's Joe. For his race, he doesn't want to get caught up with the battle. He really ideally wants most Ronan to just pit in this lap so he doesn't get caught up in anything. So this race still has its drama. Joe is within 2 seconds now of Eiffel Maestro. It's pretty much stabilised. From the second account, obviously Maestro has got a 1 lap younger tyre than Joe, so that could play benefits towards the end of the race. But then again, it might not. These tyres are not too bad around here. It's not the harder compound in terms of the wear, and they don't wear too badly, so it might not be too much of a benefit, but we'll see how things go. Obviously, if you lock up the tyres too much and you brake too late and you start oversteering too much, you are going to heat those tyres up and you are going to wear them. So it's still a long way to go, but Joe is starting to really start to climb his way back up there for Maestro and have a little go in a few laps' time.
Absolutely, there's a big prerogative in this Grand Prix as well, in the form of most Ronan. They're going to judge their tyres off of him. If he can take, however long he decides to take these soft tyres, that may be the sort of length that these guys behind will be looking to take their soft tyres as well. It's a good prerogative to have. Just how long will he be going in this Grand Prix? They may not know that he started on the soft tyres, of course. I'm sure they will do, though. But he is now 1.6 seconds ahead of Maestro, who in turn is only 1.4 ahead of Joe, who's now set another fastest lap, a 1:23.6 from the Mercedes. He's flying around now, and he is really, really on it. And this is the point where Maestro is in a very, very precarious position. Does he attack the Sauber? Does the Sauber make it easy for Maestro? There's plenty of rhetorical questions coming out now. But what will he do against Joe? He's going to have to defend with all of his might, because Joe has got some mega pace, it seems, on these soft tyres.
Indeed, exactly. That's the big thing. And I mean, I do sense that Maestro is going to have to go for it. I think if he's going to get held up too much, he needs to start getting within half a second. He needs to start thinking about jumping that Sauber driver. And he is really closing up now. So most Ronan will be thinking about it and thinking, right, I don't want to get in a scrap with this. Surely not. It's going to affect my race if I do get in a scrap. So ideally, that's how Joe gets a penalty. So this is something Maestro's going to have to calculate. Does he let... I think he's going to just stay behind the snapper driver now. He's going to see that Joe's got a penalty. Joe is really pushing hard, and that penalty reflects how hard he's pushing. And he's looked to be more in a better rhythm than he was earlier on. And look at that, Maestro stays up for another lap, so Maestro needs to bolt him now. He's going to be in the DRS, he's going to have the system, he's going to have the ERS as well. Here he goes, it should be the done deal. Here he goes, he's catching. Up the inside he goes, and that is a pretty easy move. I think Maestro has gone, you know what? You can have it, mate. I'm not getting involved with this. My race is my race. I'm going to do my race, I'm going to do my thing, and you do you. So he's definitely thinking about the longer term, is most running instead of being in the now. He's thinking about, he knows his points are down the order, not on the podium, if that makes sense. So he's looking for his race, he's doing his own race, and he's going to let everybody else battle it out.
Of course, it's going to be a very tough afternoon now for most running. We're going to be falling down the field. You can see Joe is just behind him, but this is a big thing in the Grand Prix as well. You've got to consider Maestro has now got a car buffer to himself and to Omjit's. Joe's gone a bit sideways on the exit of turn 9 towards turn 10. This long old left-hander technically. You want to keep the wheel as straight as possible. Throw the car in to 11 and 12. Joe's surely got a chance there. Most running going to get a little bit wary on the exit of the curve there. Joe around the outside. He'll go again, and surely Joe has taken second in the Grand Prix, and he indeed does take second in the Grand Prix, and he is now just under a second behind Maestro. With 14 laps to go of this Australian Grand Prix, it is all sizing up to be something that maybe we all wanted to see. A battle for the race lead between Maestro and OMG's Joe, just 8 tenths per second between them. Who will blink first? That's the question now as we head into lap 16 of 29 of this Australian Grand Prix. It's going to start kicking off. Joe's got the DRS on Maestro. He's not too far behind, but he's too far behind to make an overtake, that's for certain. How late can Joe go on the brakes? He does prove once again how good he is on that left foot, and he's going to be hassling and harrying that Ferrari. The Ferrari needs to keep it all together. Joe, let's not forget, has to build up a 3-second gap if he does get ahead of F1 Maestro as well, which is easier said than done. To be honest, it's a very difficult thing to do. Warden is side by side with Ferrari. Boogie, and there's contact between the two of them, and there's more contact between the two of them, and Warden is most definitely looking backwards and maybe even out of this Australian Grand Prix. Back to Joe, who is half a second behind F1 Maestro. He's really good. Look at the speed he takes for 11 and 12. It's absolutely incredible speed from the Mercedes, and he just can't quite get close enough. Down in towards turn 13 we go, turn 14 I should say we go again, and turn 15 that closely follows. Boogie is out of the Australian Grand Prix. We may only be down to 9 runners, and Boogie may be causing us a safety car here, but we don't quite know just yet. Maestro and Joe back at it for the race lead between these two. Joe sets another fastest lap, only 5 thousandths I believe faster than his previous one, so he's in some mega consistent pace. Is that Mercedes as we head down towards turn 3 then. Maestro is on the outside. There goes Joe on the inside. Will he look for the move? The Ferrari is braking in a straight line. He's not going to be letting that Mercedes through anytime soon, and he stays exactly where he wants him. Mercedes is back on the attack once again though as we head in towards the end of the first sector. It's not all done and dusted yet for Joe. He's going to really have to give Maestro, and Maestro will be looking and maybe even quite wary of Joe behind. He'll just want to fight this as hard as he can. 12 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Most running still sitting in P3. And he's still 1.5 seconds ahead of Langman at the moment as well. Joe is starting to get that momentum going now though. 11 and 12 closely follows these guys. Ferrari first, Mercedes just in second place, but only just in second place. And Mercedes has got the DRS once again, the third DRS zone he'll come across this Grand Prix. Joe looks to the inside, will he get the move done on the Ferrari? Late on the brake for the Ferrari, sticks it around the outside, and Maestro keeps the lead for now, but Joe is back on the inside again, and Maestro holds it around the outside, and somehow Joe still hasn't got the move done on the Ferrari, stays ahead of Joe, and he's doing a fine job, is Maestro now, just holding the lead. Joe's going to have a major run on him though, out of the exit of the final corner, down towards turn 1. Turn 3 seems more likely, but Joe will think about it into turn 1, thinks better of it into turn 1, and turn 3 closely follows. Let's see what the Mercedes will do once we get down in towards turn 3. That's where he's going to make his overtake this afternoon. Then let's see if he gets the move done then. Maestro moves to the inside, he can't quite get the move done again. Joe around the outside thinks about it, thinks better of it, but that Mercedes has got a lot more grip at the moment, and it really is telling. Langman is sitting just behind most Ronan, who is doing some 17 laps on these soft tyres. Let's not forget he could just bolt on the set of Ultras, go to the end of the Grand Prix. Let's see what his tyre wear is like, of course. Maestro still holding the lead of this Australian Grand Prix. It's really starting to kick off.
Indeed, yeah. This is the thing though. Maestro's got to be thinking risk versus reward. He knows that in terms of penalties, he's looking better than Joe. Got good decent pace, but I think what he's going to do is he's going to try and wear Joe's tyres out, because you can see how hard Joe is pushing. He's pushing pretty hard, and he's very leery in comparison to Maestro, whereas Maestro is a bit more calmer in comparison. And I think what he's going to do is he knows that Joe's got the penalty, either Joe's got the lap older tyres, so he's going to go, you know what, I'm going to wear your tyres out, mate, and I'm going to make you work for this one. And then what's going to happen is he's going to let Joe go, and he's going to focus on his race. But it's very important that Maestro doesn't come and cut himself, because if he just starts doing that, he will have a penalty too, and it's all even Stevens after that. So still, this race is very much to play for, and it's still a lot of pressure on both of these drivers.
Absolutely. The tyre temperatures go through the roof when you're dirty. You're trying to go really loud on the brakes into turn 3, and he still just can't get that move done. And the Ferrari, who's doing a fine job to defend against him at the moment. This KJ Gamer's up the inside of most Ronan, who still hasn't come into the bits. He's done some 18 laps now on those soft tyres. The battle for the lead, though, is really hotting up. Joe, it's, well, like I said, it's very easy for him. It's not easy for him to make the overtake in the first place. He's got 10 laps now to pass Maestro and then build a 3-second lead to win the Grand Prix. So he's got a lot of work to do in that Mercedes, and he's got to do it. You'd think the best chance, and maybe the only chance he'll have to win this Grand Prix, he'll have to get the move done on Maestro now. It's absolutely imperative that Mercedes can get ahead of the Ferrari, who's doing a fine job defensively against his Mercedes counterpart, and he stays ahead in towards that third DRS zone. Turn 3, though, looks like it could be a cropper for him. As we head into the penultimate corner, Maestro is going to be a little bit wary now of Joe, as Warden goes fast as forward with a 1:22.4, a stellar lap from the Australian at his home Grand Prix, and he just isn't doing enough at the moment. KJ Gamer's come into the pits as well for a new set of tyres. Joe can't get the move done into turn 1. Maestro Run has finally stopped. There's a lot going on once again here. Can Joe get the move done into turn 3? Maestro defends the inside. Joe down the inside into turn 3. Goes for the move, and the Ferrari can't quite get the move and hold him on the outside. And what a stunning move. And he's being pushed around now, turn 4 and towards turn 5. And what a stunning move. Maestro back on the attack of him, though. Back around the outside, thinks better of it. Can't quite get the move done. He's going to have a good bit of drive as they head down towards turn 8 and 9, and that Ferrari isn't giving in just yet. The Mercedes defends the inside line for all of its worth, and the Ferrari round the outside again. Can't quite get the move done. He's been squeezed out. He's going to have the DRS, though, and that will be enabled on this lap, of course. He's well within a second of him at the moment, and can he get the move done? Joe is braking that a little bit later in towards the 11 and 12. He can't lift off the throttle. Maestro back on the attack again to the Ferrari. He'll be wanting to pump through him, and actually Verstappen's got into the podium position somehow. So VRT Verstappen finds himself on the podium in the Haas. What a drive from VRT Verstappen, and can Maestro do anything about the Mercedes of Joe? But what a fantastic move that was from the Mercedes.
Same move from Joe. Oh!
Safety car.
He's been deployed. Yeah, he's deployed.
Wow.
Been deployed. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, Joe's move around the outside, well, it was just insane. It was a switchback move, Ricciardo-esque. It was textbook stuff from him, and nothing Maestro could do about it. But Maestro kept with him, put the pressure on him, and stayed with him. So it does show that there's still going to be a battle between these two towards the end of the race, but Maestro's got to box it clever, because I do believe that Joe's got that 3-second time penalty, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong, but maybe it's a little look.
Yeah, he has.
Has he got a penalty?
Joe does have a penalty. I'll check for
Yeah,
you. Just so we've got the stream stays. Yeah, and he's got one more warning. He'll get another penalty. Maestro has been so clean this Grand Prix. That's incredible how he's not lost any time there. DRS is enabled again. We're racing again in Australia, and actually Maestro's really not got the VSC restart he would have been hoping for, and he's sideways through there. Actually, the only man to have stopped in there was Langman. He was the only man to have stopped under the VSC, and he's now on some very, very fast ultra soft tyres. Watch him towards the end of the Grand Prix. He'll be reeling in these guys very, very quickly. Maestro and Joe, look at Maestro. He's really closing in on the Mercedes, but not enough. Is he going to outbrake himself? No, he isn't. The Mercedes does stay ahead, but he's going to be put under some severe pressure now from Maestro, who will be desperate. He'll be in Kilkenny rage to get this move done on the Mercedes, and I wonder how long we wait until that Ferrari may pounce on the Mercedes. It may not be long. Look how much he's closing already. He's closing towards turn 1, and they're not going to be able to get the move done into turn 1. Look at him though on the exit of turn 2. That's where he'll get his run towards turn 3, and these guys' tyres will be starting to fade off just that little bit now. Maestro still closing, still can't get the move done on the Mercedes, who locks up into turn 3, and that allows Maestro a bit of breathing space to get ever closer to the Ferrari. And I'm sure neither of these guys are breathing really, because they are scared out of their wits that they're going to make a mistake somewhere.
Indeed, yeah, it is absolutely, it's so close between the two of them. Maestro, again, he knows he's got the pace, and this is something that's, I think, that play a big factor, a big role here, is that he's not making mistakes. He's still got the pace to win this race, and because of that, he needs to stay right there with Joe, and he'll be able to stay within a second of him, I believe. Throughout the next 7 laps, he'll be within a second of him, and I think he'll take it on penalties, but he's got to keep it clean.
Oh, Joe so sideways! Goodness me, how did he keep that out of the barriers? He was sideways through 12, and Maestro back on him again, and look at this again, and we have just, this is deja vu. It's almost like we've seen this a lap ago, and you probably did, but let's see if Joe can get the move toward, well, can Maestro just, what can he do? Can he throw it at the inside somewhere perhaps? It's just, where can he get this move done? Turn 3 only seems like the best chance for him. Joe defends the inside, he weaves across the circuit, and that's well within his rights, I suppose, but he can't now move on the braking zone towards turn 1. Here we go again. Maestro still can't get the move done on Joe. Down towards turn number 3 we go again. Maestro closing in again, but can't get the move done on the Mercedes. We've got some 6 laps left of the Australian Grand Prix. We haven't even considered who the driver of the day might be just yet. It is really, really on a knife edge, this one, and it's so close to call. Maestro, look how much he's gaining on that Mercedes. He's not quite close enough to get the move done though. The chicane follows. It's a good place for him to potentially throw one up the inside and to potentially take the lead of this Grand Prix. He's already technically winning it, but he'll be wanting to win this on merit, and every good racer will want to win a race on merit as well. Let's see then, towards 11 and 12 we go again. He's just not quite close enough, is he, Maestro? He's thinking, he's not quite going to get that move done, but Joe sideways again on the exit of turn 12. He's made another mistake, and this time Maestro will be on him like a rash in towards turn 14. He'll be on the outside of the Ferrari, trying to get the switch back on the Mercedes. He can't get the move done though, and turn 3 that follows may be his best opportunity to make that move again.
Well, it is, it's the ERS saving. Maestro's got a 100% ERS bar, and in comparison, Joe hasn't got that, and that's the difference. And he's going to be able to use that ERS once again, and a DRS down the back straight in the slipstream once again. Let's see what he can do into turn 1. Can he make this move stick? No, he cannot. He has to wait one again, but he can get a good exit. He can concentrate on the exit, which he can get an okay exit, but Joe's got a similar exit as well, and Joe has got a little bit of space in comparison, and Joe once again still keeps the lead of the race. So still, it's that last corner and turn 2. That's where it is. He needs to focus on both those exits, and whilst Joe is struggling with his ERS, it's only at 40%. Obviously Maestro's got that extra little bit, and look how close he can get after going into the 2. He's so much closer because of the ERS saving. He's 96, 94, 92% with the ERS in comparison to 40% that Maestro's got, and once again he's close. Once again he needs a good exit, and he has got a good exit. He's waiting for the next left right-hander. Let's go on board with these two. And he head down, and look at this. Joe is pulling to the left-hand side. Can he go around the outside? No, he cannot. He's focusing on the switch back. Can he get the switch back? He can get the switch back. A little bit of oversteer as well. DRS and the ERS to the left-hand side. There's a Ferrari driver go. Can he make this move around the outside? Let's see. And he's going to go around the outside. He can go around the outside. Can he? Yes, go around the outside once again. He cannot make it stick. And the Mercedes driver parks it in the inside and stays into P, keeps into P1. And they touch a little bit there. And Joe Maestro is getting so frustrated. But once again, he's got the DRS. He has the ERS. And surely this is his best chance heading to turn 1. Can he make this mistake? No, he cannot. He's going to wait for turn 2 and get the perfect exit. Down to third gear. He's actually shifted down to third gear 2. He should be in fourth gear there. And Joe's been able to get a better exit from turn 2 in the end.
That slight mishaps in concentration for Maestro there may not have cost him this Grand Prix, but he's just thinking about it. He's calculating, where can I get this move done on Joe? Because he was pushing Joe then. He was teasing him around the outside there, and it would have been one of the best moves I've seen around this circuit. It would have been absolutely stellar if he'd got that move done around the outside. And he's still, once again, that ERS that you talk about there, Dom, is playing in his favour massively in this Grand Prix. That switchback through 11 and 12 is where surely he'll get the move done on Joe, and he's going to really hassle him once again. Joe just seemingly, that traction is not there for the Mercedes, and Maestro's back on him again. Around the outside he goes into 11 as well. Maestro keeps it on the outside, but he knows what the racer in him is like and thinks, well, I can still win this and I don't want to throw it away there. Towards the DRS zone we go again. Will Maestro get the move done this time? Joe defends the inside again. Maestro on the outside. Joe goes really down the brakes, locks his wheel, but can't. Still, in fact, stays in the lead of this Grand Prix. It's crazy how he's holding on to this, because it's literal daylight robbery between these two. I can't quite believe Maestro hasn't got this move done. They've been within half a second of each other for at least 10 laps, maybe a little bit less than that, but they've been so close between each other. Maestro once again towards the tail. Look at the speed on that Ferrari. He can't get the move done still through there. Down towards turn 3 we go again. Can he get the move done this time? The Ferrari is on the inside this time. Joe doesn't defend that inside as much as he has done on previous laps. Maybe that little bit of a confidence boost for the Mercedes, but it's staying so close between these top two.
Indeed, yeah, and I think Joe's got his ERS at the 54% roughly, so he can deploy a little bit more than he would normally be able to do previously. And that's where Maestro's chances kind of dissipated a little bit. But once again, Maestro knows a lap older tyres from Joe. Remember, Joe was pushing so hard for so long when he came into the pits and was chasing Maestro down when Maestro pitted a lap later. He was pushing so hard and he was struggling to get past him for so long. Those tyres, we don't know how the conditions of those tyres are going to be. They may be completely wrecked on Joe's car by the end of the race, so we'll see how things go. But once again, we can see how much Maestro is closing once again. That Ferrari is like a jet in a straight line down there, but once again, he just needs to get the exit he needs from the last corner if he can just stay with him. He's so much later on the brakes into the penultimate corner, and now the last corner. Let's see what he can do. He needs a good exit, and he's got a decent run. It's sort of 4.5 tenths, but is it enough? It's not going to be enough. It's closer than it was. And he's closing a lot and a lot and a lot. Heading into turn 1. No, he's just right on his gearbox. He needs a good exit from turn 2. And he's got a better exit than he had previously. Let's see what he can do. He's closing and closing. But once again, he's not running that slipstream. He knows it's not a chance for him to get past him. And Joe, in my opinion, Joe's drive is to make Maestro make a mistake. That's what he's doing. Because his only chance to win this race is if Joe rear ends him and spins off. Or if Maestro hits the curb on the inside of the fast left right and spins off into the wall. That's his only chance to win this race. So Joe's going to try absolutely everything in his power. But Maestro's such a mature racer, he's so experienced, he's got such a great head on him. That isn't going to happen. So he's got to try absolutely everything. And Maestro is sitting in behind him saying, you know what, mate, I can race you if you want. I've got this win in the bag. You've got to try and do something here. And once again, it's a good exit from both of them, but it's closing and closing once again. He's in the slipstream and the DRS and the ERS, but once again, it's not able to be pulled off yet. So we're waiting again, but look at that. Joe's a little bit ragged here, and this might be the best opportunity that Maestro's got. He's going to break a lot later going into the penultimate corner, now into the last corner. He's a lot closer than he was previously. Let's see what he can do. He's going to get an absolutely mega exit here. DRS and the ERS is right on board once again. But it looks to me that it's not enough. And it isn't enough. Surely not enough, is it? No, it's not enough. Again, right on his gearbox into turn 1 and now turn 2. And Joe's boxing there, absolutely clever. But once again, he's in the DRS and the ERS. Using it all what he's got. He's going to go to the inside, is he? No, he's not. He's going to stay right behind him. And he knows it's not worth the risk. He knows he's got this win in the bag. He just wants to win it on track.
This is absolutely fantastic stuff between these two at the moment. And Maestro's got a really good run on him, and he's trying to go round the outside there on a curb, which if you take any more than that, will throw you straight off the road. Maestro back on the offensive again. It's like two wounded boxers coming against each other here. They're just wounded, they've got blood everywhere, but they just cannot afford that knockout blow. And at the moment the Ferrari is sat in that scenario. He cannot get the move done. Any contact now, and it's game over. Joe can't defend like that on towards turn 11 and 12. He's toying with Maestro through there, and now Maestro just can't get this move done on the Mercedes. I can't believe that. He just broke almost in a straight line through the slight kink of turn 10.
He did, and that's the thing. He's playing the mind games. He knows that's his only chance. If he can catch Maestro up by doing that, and look how close he is. This time he's got this big contact, and it's all slow again. What? Okay, here we go again. He's in the slipstream and the DRS. This has got to be his opportunity, surely. Is he going to make a move? No, he's not. He's not close enough. And you know what? He ain't going for it. I don't think he's lifting slightly. He ain't going for it. He knows that if he goes for a move, it's all over, because he knows that Joe's going to make it difficult. But once again, he's closing it big time. Goes to left-hand side. He's going to go around the outside. Is he going to go around the outside? He's got that move done. What an awesome move by F1 Maestro. But can Joe fight it back? He's going to try and fight back. No, he cannot. And Maestro is into the lead. But is he into the lead? And let's hope he can. He can hold on to it. Yes, he can. So Maestro into the lead of the Australian Grand Prix on the last lap. And can he keep it all together? Because Joe is now playing hunted. He's hunting him down. Absolutely. He's trying to stay with him. But I got a slight suspicion that his tyres are a little bit more battered than Maestro's. Maestro's a bit smoother with his tyres, but once again he's closing right up again. He has a good exit from left, right, and he's struggling for traction.
Oh, he's got a penalty. Maestro got a penalty, so if he hadn't have got a good exit there, it would have been game over for the Ferrari. It's so crucial, that move now. Huge in this Grand Prix. We exit the final few corners. F1 Maestro has pulled off an absolute, well, it can only be described as a Maestro kind of performance, isn't it? An absolute stellar drive from the Ferrari. He exits the final corner. The Australian Grand Prix is won by F1 Maestro. He wins down under and wins the Australian Grand Prix. VRT Verstappen will finish on the podium. A fantastic drive from the Haas driver. He finishes on the podium. Ginger Ninja will finish in fourth. Sauber with some very, very good points indeed, with Maestro Ronan, who looked down and out of this Grand Prix. He was winning it, but all the penalties, he had no penalties, I don't believe, but he was really struggling, and he comes across the line to finish in P5. Langman has got a lot of wing damage there, obviously coming to blows with Maestro Ronan. They were bassing away whilst those two were winning, and he's finished in P6. Grumpy Lion somehow will finish in P7 in this Grand Prix. He's only in on those tyres for 18 laps of this Grand Prix, as long as anybody else, and he's going to finish in P7. And you could say, well, there's a lot of guys behind him who retired. In another sense, you could say, actually, getting P7 is a good lot of points for Grumpy Lion, who will get some points on the board for Red Bull. Haynes finishes in P8, and what an Australian Grand Prix that was. One to remember in RGL and SRL history. It was stunning, absolutely stunning between those top two, and it's something that can only be described as a good omen for the season. Let's hope then that we can get all three of these guys in. Let's hope that we get this podium presentation, I will call it, underway. Goodness me, this is going to be something else. The Ferrari on top, down, under, and it is something that we are going to maybe become accustomed to. Who knows this season? It's a big, big statement of intent from Maestro in the Ferrari. As much as it is from the guys who finished on the podium on this occasion. It's good to see three different manufacturers, although they all are three British drivers, which makes it ever more special, doesn't it? And there is your final race results, and they will come on screen quite soon, so let's hope. There you go, F1 Maestro wins the Australian Grand Prix ahead of MGS Joe in the Mercedes, who did start on pole, but the start meant he falls to second place in a terrific squabble for those top two. VRT Verstappen maybe gets a surprise third from starting 8th on the grid. Ginger Ninja had a very solid race. Started on ultras, finished on softs, and he finishes in P4 exactly, and the only driver, other than Fry Boogie, to finish where he started. Most Ronan had a good drive from 14th on the grid to finish 5th. Langman 6th and tried to stop on the virtual safety car. Lyon and Haynes were the final two finishers in this Grand Prix. We head to the top 3 then, who we all have in the pie, which is a good start. And we'll move swiftly on then. Guys, remember to conclude your audio as the obligatories go, and James, will move to you quickly. My God, you could not have been expecting that start, let alone the way that race panned out. What a race for you, and you've got to be overwhelmed with that result.
Yeah, I can't quite believe it. I was annoyed originally because I could have beaten Joe's time in qualifying, but the start more than made up for it. A great start for myself. And then Joe and KJ had, God knows, a great battle behind for the first lap. So I was 3 seconds clear straight away and kept that until like lap 15. Joe was quicker than me. I knew he would catch me, but I was just trying not to get a penalty, which I didn't until the last lap. And Joe passed me, but I knew he had a penalty, so at that point I was like, yeah, I'll just sit behind. He's not going to be able to pull away because of how this game works. So which you probably noticed on the screen, on the stream, Bailey was catching us quite a lot, but I was happy to sit behind. Last lap I decided to go for it, and I don't think he was expecting it, or he just didn't have the fuel, etc., to defend from me. Got the move done around that side, turn 3, and then ironically got a penalty later in the lap, but I won on track, so it didn't matter. So yeah, I can't believe it to come here and beat Joe, Langman, ARF1 drivers, Bailey, ARF2. It's pretty incredible, to be honest, and yeah, best possible start to the season.
Absolutely right, and that's maybe a big statement from yourself actually, to go and beat Joe and Layman as well, and Bailey. It can't be easy, and that Grand Prix looked far from it. That battle with Joe, you must have been thinking to yourself. I mean, I don't know what I'd be thinking in that scenario, but I'd be thinking he's only doing this because he's got a penalty. I don't really know how to word it, but basically you must have been some sort of pressure because you feel like that one slight mistake and the chance is gone. So was that the exact approach that you were taking for it? As in, where you really did feel like you're under pressure to win it, but in the end, or just how did it pan out? That last lap overtake, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I never had any expectation to win. I knew I did a bit more practice than Joe and definitely Langman. Bailey and I probably did a similar amount of practice, so I knew my pace would be closer than it would normally be to those guys, especially given Australia is one of my best tracks anyway. But yeah, I didn't ever feel like, oh yeah, this is my race to win against the drivers like that, of that caliber. But obviously, I started to believe, but I knew all the time behind Joe, one slip up and it was gone because I had 2 warnings from lap 4, and then I just drove lap 5 to 28 flawlessly, no warnings. And obviously on the last lap it didn't matter, so took a slight liberty on the chicane. But yeah, last lap overtake in the party, Bailey said, wouldn't you rather win on track? I was like, not really, but I gave it a go anyway. Joe was pretty slow off turn 1 and 2, so it is worth going for. If Joe had been able to hang it in around the outside of turn 4, I would have backed out, but luckily he couldn't, and I was able just to take the position and bring it home. Unbelievable, really.
Absolutely right, and congratulations on the win. We move swiftly to P2 and to OMG. It's Joe, and Joe, started on pole. It looked like it could have been a good day for you out here today. Though it was probably the place where that Grand Prix kind of got away from you in many ways. What exactly went wrong at the start?
I don't know. I said to myself, I said in the party I was going to get a crap start, and I did. I just like the reactions just weren't there, and that first couple of lap battles, that was awful. I'm going to be honest. KJ, I know he's part of VSR, so I'm not going to slag him off or anything, but it was unacceptable because I got pushed into the actually into the wall. I'm not sure I didn't get damage, but yeah, I wasn't very happy. So I tried a few dive bombs, didn't really work out until he crashed or whatever. But yeah, the race was pretty much ruined from the start. I was about 4 seconds behind Maestro when I got past KJ. I caught him up, and then just about slowly getting past, I knew I had a penalty, and I thought he had one, but I was getting baited until like the last 5 laps where I realised he hadn't actually got one. And I tried backing him up a little bit. Just because I knew he wouldn't get a penalty. If he was behind me, he wouldn't have got a penalty. Like there was no way it was happening. So I just tried something. I tried going slowly. Yeah. So when he overtook me, I was in like lean and like low ERS. Like there was no real point because he wouldn't have got a penalty if he was behind me. Like he'd just take it extra like cautious. But once he was in front, I was a bit like shocked he actually got a penalty. I was in disbelief, but I could almost like guarantee he wouldn't have got it if he was behind. From what I've just said. Yeah, P2, not bad, I guess, but it's not what I wanted.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. And I mean, this season is still a very long season, so I mean, there's plenty of other Grand Prix to potentially make up for it. But context of your overall start, thinking about it, getting a second place off the board isn't a bad way to start. But I mean, do you feel like the competition will be close this season? Because I was thinking to myself that there may be one outright favourite, but I'm thinking now that it's going to be a lot closer. Would you go along and say that it will be a very close season?
I don't know, to be honest. Depends, like if certain drivers can turn up, like if Maestro hadn't have like had the pace he had today, it would have been a pretty boring race, to be honest. So it just depends if certain drivers can turn up on the day, then it should be a good season. But yeah, like if I like get my act together, I should be fighting for the win most races. Not saying I'm gonna win, of course, because like I haven't even won today. So I should be fighting most races, but it just depends if others can turn up as well. Like I hope they can because I don't really want a boring season. I want to be pushed all the way to the end, as I was
And
today.
we want to.
Yeah,
we
let's
want
just
to be
see what
entertained.
happens. Let's just see what happens really.
Absolutely right, and congratulations on P2. We now move to what I believe to be correct is the youngest ever podium sitter in SRL on RGL. So we come to VSD Verstappen or Bailey, and Bailey. That race seemed to be quite few at times, but it managed to come good for you in the end. You were sitting in P5 for a while, and then some mishaps ahead, and you capitalised. Was that a fair comment? How was the Grand Prix for yourself?
Well, Pierre wasn't really the greatest place I would qualify. I mean, I knew I had a lot more than a 20.8, maybe a lower 20. Off the start, I just got sandwiched between Warden and my teammate. I think I just really tried to get up to as far as the grid as I possibly could in the first lap. I managed to get in a P6, and then Jack, my teammate, kindly let me through. And I just tried to catch Langman, but he was managing the gap really well, and then the pit stop phase came where Langman pitted first. Coming in the pits, I got a 5-second stop go, which wasn't really helping my cause to catch the top 4. But overall, I was just trying to catch KJ, using all my airs and all my fuel pretty much, but also managing the gap to Ninja behind. So and then the Sauber held quite a few people up. I think Langman got wing damage, and I think KJ went into the back of him, so he had to pit, and then Langman let me through. I just kind of got gifted that P3. And then I knew I had 8 seconds worth of penalties, so I was just pushing, trying to get that gap up to Ginger Ninja, until I found out he had 9 seconds of penalties, so just bring it home after a lot of frustration with these past couple of league races, these weeks, and I really needed this podium to finally motivate me and actually put some confidence.
Absolutely right, and that's basically following on the question I was going to ask you. So, this season, I mean, I don't really know what your expectations are. I'm guessing it will be to get some podium finishes now and again. So do you think that's possible? Do you think you can get podiums over the course of this season? It's a realistic objective for you.
I think it will be, but I mean, there is some good tracks for me and some bad tracks for me, like every driver, and We'll just have to see how the season plans out. I mean, like, there's a lot of quick drivers in this league, like Joe and Maestro and Langman. So I think we just need to see how each race goes and look at it each one race at a time.
Very mature answer, to be fair, and congratulations on the 3rd place. Dom, have you got any further questions?
No, not really. Just congratulations to all 3 of you. You drove a solid race. Obviously, Maestro and Joe, you guys gave us a fantastic battle throughout the whole race. Thoroughly enjoyed watching it and commentating over it, and hopefully for the rest of the season that's sort of the same sort of story as it continues. Obviously, you've Verstappen did a superb job as well yourself, getting on the podium, so that's always a good way to start the season, and I think the top 3 all deserve to be top 3 today because they've driven fantastic races, so congratulations to all 3 of you.
Thank you.
Fantastic stuff. So, guys, that was round 1, the Australian Grand Prix. If that doesn't give you some nostalgia with the top 3 that we've just had, I don't know what will. But anyway, what a fantastic, fantastic way to start the season with a pre-season race in round 1, which was absolutely stellar. You can join us for round 2, the Bahrain Grand Prix, next weekend. Myself and hopefully Commando will be in the commentary box, but Dom's always a very good man to rely on. So, until then, guys, thanks very much for watching and supporting, and I hope that you can get involved in any ways you can. And we'll see you next time for the Bahrain Grand Prix.